Welcome to another episode of Two Babies in a Business, a podcast where I got to and get to talk to amazing women in my community, but in the greater community that are balancing mom life and work life. And today I am joined by someone I have a massive amount of respect for who kills it at communication. So, just my communication nerd heart just bursts every time she posts something. Sonya, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm Sonya Sharp. I'm a born and raised Calgarian, a mother of two boys, 11 and 16. Very busy boys, we'll put it that way. And I am currently the City of Calgary's Ward 1 councillor.
You've had like an interesting transition, I think, as someone who used to kind of play politics quite a bit. Walk me through your transition, especially with the lens of being a mom from, business life to now this really public life.
If someone had told me when I was 18, this is what I would have been doing, I would never have believed them. Growing up, I come from an entrepreneur family, and you just learned that you work to live, and we would help with the business. I really did help a lot with my dad and his construction business. So I grew up on a construction site and I enjoyed it. But I saw my parents struggle, right, through making sure there was food on the table. There was 4 children, and making sure that we still maybe ended up doing a trip here and there. I never went to Disneyland as a kid, so I knew that those types of things would be special. So it was about 12, 13 years old that I was like, I am never going to run my own business and I am going to just get a job. And so I had it in my mind that at 12 and 13, I was either going to be a teacher or a lawyer. And so I decided at 18 that I was going to pack my stuff, and I got into University of Lethbridge, and I'm headed to be a teacher. And still very close with my family, always helped out where I could on the weekend, and my dad was a home builder, so you kind of helped where you could.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm out of here, because I didn't want to really take on that role forever. So started my first 2 years of university going into education, and I thought I'd be a teacher and this will be okay. And it was about 2.5 years into my degree, and my mom ended up really sick with breast cancer. So my dad had asked if I could come back and run the business with him so he could take care of my mom. And what do you say at that point, right? So you come back, and it was like, I knew the business. I was a practitioner, but I didn't have street credit. Like, I didn't have a trade skill or anything like that. So I left Lethbridge, came back to Calgary, worked with my dad a little bit on site, understanding where the projects were at. And then I went to SAIT to get a construction diploma and ran a crew of 23 for my dad while he took care of my mom. And then they went to the States, and I took care of business. But, anyone that's in business knows they don't pay themselves. And
Right.
so I also got a job at the City of Calgary as a lifeguard in 2001. So I was lifeguarding, running a business. I had met my now husband at U of L. So we were kind of, starting our life together. We weren't married yet, but he was also running a business. So business was kind of our thing.
Yeah.
And then in 2005, I got a job at the city. And so I sold like the business back to my dad, and he took on the construction stuff because it was a bit of a conflict of interest. I got a job at the planning department. So I transitioned from parks and rec aquatics to planning and development. And that's kind of where I started my city career, you could call it that. And I started to have babies. So I got married 2008, had my first son. And then my husband and I bought a business in Kelowna. I spent my whole maternity leave in Kelowna while we ran a business out there.
Nice.
Had a business in Airdrie. So we were still very much involved in business, but I still had a city job and I quite enjoyed it. And it worked, right? I just started working up the ranks at the City of Calgary, and then had my second boy in 2013. And my job at the time, I worked in bylaw. It really worked for having a work-life balance. I could work from home, manage the boys. They were little, 5 and a newborn. And in 2016, I thought, I think I'm going to leave the city. And I just kind of was like, I'm kind of done here. I kind of, felt like nothing was really challenging me. I need to be challenged. And the job was great. Like I said, it was worked well for family life. So I had approached my boss at the time, and he was great. And I said, I think it's time for me to leave. And I had, been there for a while, like 17 years in the city. And I just want to try something different, maybe go back into full-time business. And he said to me, there's a job coming, and I think you would be great at it. And I was like, well, what's this job? And he says, well, it's called small business coordinator, and it's really a liaison between the business community in the city of Calgary. But it was a competition, so I had to apply for it. And I did, and it was successful. And so I started to really own that job, own that position, bring the lens of a business owner into the city of Calgary. I did that job in the planning department for a couple years, and then it started to get really busy. And so they elevated this position at the city manager's office. And 6 months later, COVID happened.
Right.
And it was like, this job was meant to be. And now there was a team of people set up to help the business community during COVID. And, obviously got to work from home. The boys were home with me. A lot of people complain about COVID. Don't get me wrong, being home and not getting your roots done for a long time is an issue for us moms sometimes and women. But I did feel like I got some time back with my kids.
Yeah.
And I say that because, like, during the stressful times of trying to support the business community during COVID, the Alberta government restrictions, all of that, we were outside, we were doing crafts. I started to see the skills in my kids because at this point too, like, their whole lives flipped upside down. There was no sports. My kids are big into hockey and soccer, but you made it work. And so I feel like I got that time back with my kids, which was really important to me. And so it was a whole good year of COVID, working really hard. And my Dan, hours were nuts because business owners' hours are nuts. We know that. And it was the Christmas of 2020 that I had sat down with my husband. And I said, I think I'm ready to quit and I'd like to run for council. And he was like, okay, well, what does this mean? Because I could have run as a city employee, but I wanted to quit. And the reason I wanted to do that is I needed to delineate myself, that I had kind of reached the point at the city where I couldn't break any more barriers. And I had tried everything. And I didn't want to put myself in a bad position or the city in a bad position.
Yeah.
So the May of 2021, I had put in my resignation that I would be done in June. And I did quit. June 19th, I quit. And June, I think it was 20 or 21st, I announced my run for Ward 1 City Councilor. Yeah. And I felt like the experience I had just growing up in the business community, growing up in the community itself, like I grew up in Silver Springs and Scenic Acres, and having the knowledge and understanding of municipal government, I was well positioned for that job. And actually, my husband said it to me the other night after the whole water crisis, and I had come home and I was, controlled chaos is my thing, I think. But he was like, you're born to do this because you have to be able to balance everything that's going on. You've got a 16-year-old that's going through so many different changes in life in high school. You've got an 11-year-old who still needs his mom a lot, right? I've got elderly parents. One's in a home, one lives with me. And then you've got a community of people with no water. So how do you prioritize everything and what gives? Right. So, being able to do all that and still love what you do, I think it does take a certain personality, a certain type. There are many people that I know that can do this. And you don't do it for the money. You do it for the passion and love for community, and you do it for the right reasons. And you do it for Calgary. And that's why I do what I do. So if I go back to my childhood and thinking about what I used to love to do, I used to love to help people. I helped my dad. I helped my friends. And, I wanted to be a teacher or a lawyer. You start to look at what you thought you wanted to be when you grew up. So the love for public service, I think, is just ingrained in certain people. And so this is my 23rd year in public service. And so after this term, I would serve 24 years. And I'm 44. So I have spent almost half my life serving Calgarians.
Yeah. No, I love that reflection too of like the things you thought you might be or the things you gravitated to as a kid. Because I think about it too for, I joke about the fact like how organized my bedroom was as a kid. Yeah. And that's that like business manager, yes. Right? Organizing a file. And I remember when I took the leap into, having my own business and being an entrepreneur, and I thought, that's not me. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a communications or I'm a PR person. And then you look back and you go, oh yeah, like there was some real A-type business owner things happening from a young age, right? Knocking on doors. Can I shovel your driveway? Right? Like those things ingrained that to your point, like I loved doing that. It is there is something inside of us, and to be able to kind of listen to that, even if it
Yeah,
takes us 20 years,
I know.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of my journey to where I'm at. And, you mentioned the thing about cleaning your room. Like, I remember as a kid, every Saturday morning, I take all my toys off the ledges, and my bed was like military made. And it was like, and I'd look at my siblings and be like, how come you're not? And I'm the third. So I'd be like, how could you not want to live like the perfect life, or like the
Yeah.
perfect bedroom, or things like that? And now it's funny because I look at my kids, they're very different, and I have to let it go. And they're boys.
True.
So
It's true. No, as a fellow boy mom, there is one
see,
that shall remain nameless that like I just have given up. I'm like, okay, this
I
is
hear you.
your domain, and I love you, and that's what
And
we're
that's it.
good at.
Yeah,
I'll
I
stay
think
here.
builds character as a mom, let me tell you.
Well, let's dive into that kind of this notion of the perfect maybe mom life balance. Like what's your philosophy? How have you kind of
Yeah.
deconstructed that?
Yeah, and this is kind of a reflection back to, like, my mom was a bit of a homemaker. She did have jobs here and there. She was a chef at a couple restaurants. She kind of helped out with the business, but she was that quintessential mom. You came home, she was there. And in the morning she was there. And so you were like, you had the perfect mom. Mom was always around. And like, you can't say life is just perfect, because my parents worked hard, and she took the burden on also of like making sure there was food on the table. But you know going back to when my husband and I owned a couple businesses, and we had some really good times, and we had some successful businesses. And then we did make mistakes, and you learn from those. And I always tell my kids, you win and you learn. And we did. We had a hard learn when my first was about 18 months. We made a mistake on a business deal, and it is what it is. At that point, before that, I had thought, I'm kind of set for life. I might not need to work in the future. And, I was in my late 20s, and I could stay home, and we had plans for like 4 or 5 kids. We both come from big families.
Yeah,
When those things happen, you reflect back and say, okay, well, we got to make a change. We have to pivot.
right.
And so I went back to work, and I was living with my mom and dad in a townhouse in Airdrie, and my husband was still in Kelowna running a business. And, I had to try to be this perfect mom for my oldest son. And I was scared to always ask for help. You need to cross that threshold when you realize asking for help is okay.
Yeah.
And as a mom, as a woman, it's like the last thing we do. It's like, no, I don't, I got this, right? Yeah, you have it until you don't have it. You have it until you realize you're in postpartum. You have it until you realize postpartum can come back. And I did struggle with my first one. And I know there are times where I think like you can fall right back into that. And that stuff is real. And you really have to be in tune with yourself. And then, 5 years go by, and we pick ourselves back up again. And we didn't have another kid yet. And so we had our second after 5 years. We never thought we'd have kids 5 years apart. And we always kind of wanted to have more, but it's okay. I had my second. We were so happy. And, then we were like, okay, we're good. And then with my second, I was like, I learned from my first. You get help. You get help. And I was working. I was a full-time mom, and with the city, and I did, had the luxury of doing 1 or 2 days a week at home.
Yeah.
And my husband at this point had a job, and he's a shift worker, and you learn to manage. Now, you fast forward into this life, into the public life, the public eye. And everyone's like, oh, you always have to be on. You do.
Yeah.
But being on and being perfect are two different things. I have to be on, I have to be present. I went through 4 weeks of public hearing where I had to be present, I had to be on, I had to be able to engage with people. But I also had to be a mom.
Yeah.
There were days where I'd have to leave and attend to my kids. When I was campaigning, people knew I was a mom.
Yeah.
And I did have sometimes, it was kind of harsh in a way. I did have once a mom or a woman ask me, like, how do you expect to be a good counselor and a good mother? And I said to her, right to her face, I said, I really hope you're asking the male candidates that question.
Yeah.
Because, I think I'm a strong woman, and I know my threshold, I know my boundaries, and I know how to protect my family. And boundaries are super important.
Yeah.
So you bring your family to things that are family friendly. You shelter them from things that could, at a 16, 11-year-old, cause a little bit of damage, but you can't protect them from everything. So, you can't be perfect. And I'm not perfect in this job. And I learn. I know, like, right out of the gate, I might have made some mistakes or voted on things that I was like, oh gosh, if I do that all over again, it would be different. But you learn, and you look at other women and you ask for advice. And that is the most important thing. And so you can't be perfect, but there is this thing And, I try to explain it even to my husband or either other men that work with me, is there's this, I guess, stigma that, working moms need to do it all. It's like, I don't shower every day. I got dry shampoo. I brush my teeth. I do my 4-minute makeup. I
Yeah.
put myself together. But
Yeah.
the most important thing is that my family's safe and I have that going and I get to doing my job and serving my constituents the best way I can.
Yes.
So, this whole mentality where people have to be perfect, you can't. And no one can say they are. And it's okay to make mistakes. One thing I learned from my dad growing up, and it's really important, and I think, you kind of have to be once in a while in those positions to
Yeah.
understand, is it's okay to admit defeat and move on. So if
Yeah.
something doesn't work, it's okay. Learn from that. Some people say you can't cry over spilt milk. True. But in our world, decisions can be hard and things can be hard. So it's okay to admit, like, you know what, that was not a good thing. That was a mistake. And just publicize it. Be like, I made a mistake. Sorry. And it's okay to be humble and own it because I think that builds character. And I think you're leading with conviction. So those are things I learned through my whole life. And my family was never perfect. Like I said, I took my kids to Disneyland, was the first time I ever went. And I don't regret any childhood thing that my family couldn't provide me because now I enjoy it.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I feel like, I mean, lots to unpack there, but like,
I know.
I do think there is this really interesting, you know, whether it's assumption or stigma or that perfection around a woman and you can't balance. And I almost feel like we're so supportive, right? Oh, good for her. Until we start unpacking it. I remember actually so I had just started really consulting and got pregnant with twins, right? Hid it from my clients. Like, thank God for Zoom calls. I feel like I was, neck up. And it wasn't until I was 5.5, almost 6 months pregnant that I started telling clients that, okay, this is happening. And, I had a plan, obviously supportive partner too, where I was going to keep working, right? Business owner, you don't get to clock in for a mat leave, right?
Nope.
I always say I never got to go into the boss's office and say, well, see you in 12 months. But for me, it was like, no, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm building a business. And I had clients who
Yeah.
said to me, there's no way you're going to be able to do this. And they walked away. They concluded their contract.
Wow.
I didn't have any of my male clients say that. I had them say, okay, take a few weeks and, it gave me a little bit of space and time, which is great. But it's so interesting to me, the assumptions that we almost put on each other. What would your
Yep.
advice be, I guess, to how we kind of move through that?
It's interesting that you say that because I have like that happened to me when I was pregnant with my first, and I applied for a job, and I had to go on mat leave. And I remember it was a girl that said to me, a woman in like the office said, "Well, you're never going to get that permanent job now that you're pregnant." And
Uh-huh.
I was like, now you think about, you can't say that to somebody, but I was like, wow, like that hurt because I was like, yeah, well, okay, I guess if I don't get it, I don't get it. I mean, nowadays that would be a totally different situation. You mentioned things about women and like we talk about supporting each other and lifting each other up, but we can also be the hardest on each other.
Yeah.
We've had situations even on council now that I'm like, just kind of like, we are, as women, like we all have been through something the same at different points of our life.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like we're in competition with each other. And it really, like, those are the things I think for me is I've never been like that. My team, I've had teams full of women, I've had teams with guys on them, and I'm all about lifting everybody up. It's not about me. It's not about me owning it. I like when my team does something, give them credit. It's really important. And you can see those leaders, and, it's important to give credit. And I think it's going to take some time to start seeing women in those types of positions of leadership.
Yeah.
We have our first NHL female coach, right?
Yeah.
And to see that, like, I'm proud of her, like, I'm like, good on you, and I'm like, those are the types of things that we need to do. We need to empower each other and know that we're there for you. I'm there for you when you have one of those days where you just need to cry and don't even have to
Yeah.
tell me what it's about. And because sometimes, like, I know I need that. I know I need to like have a moment, and you need to surround yourself with women like that. But we can be the hardest on each other. And I think it's going to take some time. And I'll be honest too, I think it's important that it's okay to call each other out. It's okay to
Totally.
say, hey, yo, listen here for a second. That's not cool.
Yeah.
If a guy were to say that to a woman or say something, yeah, we would just pounce on that. So I
Yeah.
think it's important that it's okay to call women out too a little bit here and there for not supporting women. And if they take it personally, take it personally. But it's that passive aggressive thing that I struggle with. That's
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of those Mean Girls vibe. I
Yeah.
wonder too, like I look at kind of the next generation. I mean, and you go, I wonder if there was some of that, Mean Girls vibe that was just a part of our pop culture that we were
Yeah.
raised on, or something in there that made us have that kind of competitive edge.
And, I really hope the generations coming up
Yeah.
don't have to. I feel like we're, as an 80s baby, we went through a lot. Like I remember coming home and watching like Degrassi Junior High or Degrassi
Right?
High and being like, how come my life is on TV? And how come this is happening? And so I feel it's a bit different. And having boys is a bit different too,
Yeah.
because I hear the things my kids talk about and some of the things that happen with the girls. And I'm like, holy, I hope they have support systems and things like that. And don't get me wrong, it's not going to be easy for the generation of boys growing up either. But yeah, we have it different, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Okay, any advice? I usually ask the question, any advice for a new mom who's kind of going through this balance? But I might twist it for you and say,
sure.
any advice for a mom that's looking to kind of take that step into public life? Because I think that one, I have tremendous amount of respect for you because I know the balance. I've obviously worked in politics. I've seen it firsthand where it goes really well and really poorly. So obviously, I'm a champion for more moms being in office. We need to have
Yeah,
those voices. What advice would you put out there if someone's thinking about it and is kind of in that stage of life?
I would say make sure you know how to put boundaries up. And boundaries are important because you will be scrutinized on everything. Social media is not your friend. You jaywalk, you're in trouble. Your words, you have to be impeccable with your words. So know your boundaries
Yeah,
and know that you can't take everything personally.
yeah,
And those that you surround yourself with, your core group of people, they're your support system.
yeah,
And they're the ones that you have to trust to say, hey, you know what? I shouldn't have. And take that constructive criticism and own it. Surround yourself with people that get it. Also, surround yourself with people that get politics because it can be a tricky place and it can be sometimes not a nice place.
yeah,
And know that, focus on what your goal is. And if your goal is to do the best you can for Calgary, own it. Or whichever constituency
yeah.
you're serving, own it. But we do need more moms. And the thing is that we bring a different perspective. I'll
Yeah.
tell you, I negotiate brushing teeth every day. I'm
Right.
just saying, I don't need a vote of 8 for people to brush their teeth in the morning, okay? It is a vote of 1. But when you go into politics, you need to learn how to compromise too. And so moms compromise. We compromise our sleep. We compromise what we're cooking for dinner if people don't want the same thing. And, we try not to give in to everything, but know your boundaries. Know you can't take things personally and know that you can't be perfect at everything. And there's going to be things that you have to let go, and it's okay.
Yeah. I love that. So important. And I love the fact that, I feel like we should put that on like a resume when you're running for office, like master negotiator. Because we are, it's true. I negotiated teeth brushing this morning. Absolutely.
I'll tell you, when those water restrictions came out, first thing my kid said to me, so now I don't have to brush my teeth. And I was like, oh, no, no. You brush your teeth. You don't need the 40-minute shower. You got a 3-minute shower and you got a 2-minute toothbrush. That means you only need 5 minutes to get ready.
No, it's true. My boys were that night that the water went off. My boys both said, we don't have to have a bath tonight. It
See?
was just joyous. And I went, well, I guess we're going to do our part right away.
You know what I'll also say is that has saved me having boys and sports is baby wipes.
Oh, there you go. It's true.
Baby wipes. And you know what? Baby wipes take everything away. So, if you just need baby wipes, get baby wipes. That's through this water restriction. That'll help you
True.
out.
Probably a metaphor for life in there somewhere too.
There
Just
is, you
baby
know what? I
wife.
feel like baby wipes just also, if you need some baby wipes to wipe those tears,
Yeah.
do it. And another thing I'll say is, a good cry once in a while is okay. Get in the car, own the cry, get home, come in and be a mom, because there are days where, you know what, yeah, I break down. I'm not
Yeah.
perfect. I have those days and it's okay to own it. And I come in the house and I turn my mom on and I was like, how was your day? And a hug from the kids can turn things around. And you do that, then you drive them to soccer or hockey, and then you may have to log back on again. There's no
Right.
9 to 5 in this world.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to also self-care and find that balance. It's not easy out of
Yeah.
the gate, but you will. And so that's my other advice. Self-care is important because your health is everything, and your kids need that, and your kids need you.
No,
So
it's so
yeah.
true. And I feel like it's the being being real with where you're at. I think that's the other
Yep.
thing we don't often we moms check in with everyone else. Okay, where is everyone at? And we never say, okay, where am I at? And
Yep.
I feel like, again, sometimes it is, all right, I feel like giving up today, gonna take a walk, need an hour by myself,
Totally.
and then you come back and you see the cute craft from school or get the
Yep.
great whatever
Yep.
it is feedback from someone about how your kid was great that day, and you're like, okay, I'm doing
Yep.
okay.
And that's important. Like, that's the thing, is you need to cherish the little things. When your 16-year-old does the dishes without asking, I'm like, whew. Then you're like, oh, so what are you asking for in about 20 minutes from now? But it's kind of like, okay, yeah, you got to relish those. Or like the socks get folded. That's a win in my house. If
Oh,
socks get
totally.
folded, yeah, they're like put away and folded. I'm like, okay, and that's important. Those are the things, the small things are important for us moms. I know it is. And yeah, if anyone that wants to get into this job wants to pick up the phone and call me,
Yeah.
I have all the time for you, because, and I'll tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think people have to make the decision on their own. And so I work with some great moms on council, and we all have kids at different phases of our lives. And it's, we all kind of laugh too,
Yeah.
like, and you talk about, getting 5 minutes in the bathroom. Yeah. Still trying for that one.
Good
I'm
to
still
know.
trying for 5 minutes alone in the bathroom. And I laugh and I'm like, okay, what is happening?
It's true. Well, that's good to know. So I won't
Yep.
bank on that for
No,
decades.
no. I still like, so that's like, I just need this. And it's like, could you give me 5 minutes? Well,
Yeah.
I need it now. But do you?
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, Sonia, thank you. I
Thank you.
loved learning more about your story. I
Thank
loved
you.
the conversation we got to have, but thank you for all you do
Thank you.
for
Thank
Ward
you.
1, for the
You're
city, and
welcome.
thanks for
It's my
being a mom.
pleasure. Thank you
Repping.
so much.
Awesome.
Okay. Take it easy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for listening in today to another incredible journey of a mom who's just like you, trying to balance it all. I'm encouraging you to join our community online. It's TBAAB, Two Babies in a Business, .circle.so. That's TBAAB.circle.so. Join in the community, share your story, learn from other women. I'm so looking forward to seeing you there.